Hey, how's it going?
Great. How are you? Thank you for having me this morning.
Yes, I'm really excited to get to know you better. And as you know, this is the One Self podcast. And this is where wellness meets purpose, inspiring you to grow intentionally and elevate your brand, business, and life. So, I want to know a bit about you and your professional background.
Oh, that was a question. Okay. Well, I've been a court reporter as a career for the last 35 years, which is about the only thing that kept my interest of many things. I studied to be an Arabist. I'm a linguist and I love words. I'm also a professional writer. I've published a bunch of books and short stories, poetry, all of the above articles. But right now I'm still doing court reporting, and I run an Airbnb on the side sometimes as needed. And I've always got things going on. You know that about me.
Oh, yes, 100%, 100%. And you are like the master connector, my friend. You are able to, just be with people from all walks of life, all ages. And I think that's such a gift, and there's so much power in connection and just meeting the right quality people who make a difference in your life.
Hmm. Absolutely.
So given that you've worn so many hats, court reporter, Airbnb host, author, community networker, how did these earlier roles shape who you are today without defining you?
I really think that everything you do does define you, and but I think those who know me understand that I'm very divergent and that I can walk in many circles, and I have many groups of friends and many interests, so that I don't like labels, because today I might be here in this group and this might be my belief. And different decades, different seasons of your life, you find that things that your interests and your energies go elsewhere. So I really hesitate to put a label on myself. I just leave the door open to limitless possibilities.
Absolutely, 100%. I love that. And then you're always learning, and that's what I like about you because people don't understand when you're an author, like it's not just like, okay, I wrote a bunch of stuff on a notepad and I just typed it up. No, it's like it has to have a theme, it has to have a purpose, it has to have a direction, beginning, middle, end, and like a flow. So how long in your writing exposure and experience, how long does it on average take to make a novel?
Huh. Well, that's an interesting question. We discussed this at a recent writers group I'm in. My first one, I was inspired to write as a screenplay 25 years before it was published as a novel.
Mhm.
So for 25 years, then I was raising children. I didn't really care for my first draft of it. And then I raised two children, and it wasn't the right season of my life until it started running like a movie inside of my head. And so I rewrote it during COVID, which a lot of people looked at as the worst experience of their life. But for us creatives, I think it gave us time to really turn inward and do things and projects that we always wanted to do.
Yeah.
So that's when I rewrote it as a novel. And I really liked that version so much better. And so that was my deliberations book. I'll just like
Oh, yes,
show
I have
you up.
one. Yes.
Yeah, and that was my heart song. I was inspired to. I was pregnant with the idea for it when I was pregnant with my first child. So that's how long it took, and he's 30 now. But so it depends when you have the time to actually sit down and write it, and the concentration, and when you do your rewrites. So
Yeah.
I've written my other one, Casa de Alegria, probably. In a span of a year. I think that one, and I can't remember what it's called. You know, the November challenge for writers to write
Oh,
150
yes.
page novels. And so I did it as a challenge to myself in the November challenge. And then I rewrote it during COVID as well. Another great time to rewrite it.
I love that. I love that. So do you self-publish now all your books or is it something that you go to a publisher for?
I have self-published. My very first book, which was a book about court reporting, was published through West Publishing, and then I got the rights to it later, but I didn't really market it well. So,
Mhm.
you can go either way. Right now, my books are being self-published, but I wouldn't mind handing it over to a publisher because I'm not in the marketing end of things. I'm
Yeah.
more on the artistic end, and once I birth it like a child, I'm on to the next.
Yes, and there's people don't understand that no matter what it is, whether you have, you're selling clothes, you're selling jewelry, you're selling a book, there's a marketing strategy that comes with it. You have to have a book cover that you need to outsource or make it yourself, a design for that. You have to make sure that all the fonts fit into that format. You have there, finding where to put it online. It's all work that goes into it, plus like printing costs. There's just a lot of things. So the fact that you were able to like be good with the version that you wrote and said, you know what? Because you can edit all day long and be like, okay, well, I can change this and I can change that. But when is
Mm.
that point when you're like, okay, Dana, I'm done? When was the point when you were like, okay, I'm ready to send it over to the publisher?
Well, since I self-published, that was a little bit different. I like say deliberations, but I put it on Goodreads, and since I edit as a court reporter, which is my profession, I edited my book myself. I felt I was the best one to do it, and when I sent it to Goodreads, I got a review from an editor saying the best thing about this book is that the author took the time to have it professionally edited before sending it in to be reviewed. And I was so thought that was the greatest compliment because she thought I did a good job. So
That is awesome. That is so awesome. Hey, you know what? Maybe that could be your side hustle, helping other authors edit their books. I mean, you
oh,
do.
I've done it. I've done it many a time, but I don't charge for it. It's really if I have time and it's a friend, I'll do it.
Wow, that's awesome. And I know that you could give really good suggestions on, okay, how can you change the plot, or because you're super creative. I feel like you have a new story that you can write almost every day from all your life experiences as well.
Yeah, and I feel like when we rise together. So I want all my friends and fellow writers to be their personal best. So that's why, I don't look at it as work and charge for it. It's a labor of love.
Awesome, awesome. I know. And then I also loved that you came to a creatives gathering that one of our friends had. And that was so cool because in that room, there was, a musician, a copywriter, couple of poets, and it's just like really cool that different people got together and got to share their poetry and the open mics that you've done. And I love
Yeah,
that.
I thrive in a creative environment. So I always surround myself in life with creatives, spiritual people, and people that will always grow me, that know a lot more than me and can teach me new things.
Yes, yes. Well, there's a quote someone told me, like, if you're the smartest in the room, then you're in the wrong room.
I
And I,
love that quote.
and I
Yeah.
never understood that, for the longest time. And then when I got older, I was like, it's good to learn from other people because maybe they've done it a certain way that can make, whatever task you're doing get done quicker because now you know the secret sauce.
Exactly. Exactly.
So at what point now, Dana, did you realize, your voice and your lived experiences were meant to serve people beyond your profession?
Well, I've been writing poetry since I was 7. And in the beginning, it was just beautiful things about my family and my cat. And, I noticed that it made people feel good. And what I felt is, as a writer, even that young, is that if you can touch the emotion of just even one person, you've done your job. And that was very fulfilling to me. It was a connection that I really enjoyed. And that's why I like to do open mic every once in a while. I feel like it's time for me to connect with some people in the community and share what I have to say. And with my poetry, it's generally very personal and based on personal observations and experience. So this way I don't get in trouble because, I'm writing about myself. So I can't really offend too many people if you're saying this is my experience. And yet I've had wonderful responses where people got messages through certain of my poems that they felt they were meant to hear, like say from someone who had passed on. Someone told me and took one of my poems and keeps it on her, nightstand. And so there were a lot of beautiful connections that people know me by that I didn't even know about. But
That's
yeah,
great.
that's the beauty of connecting.
Yeah, that's the impact of they say pictures are worth 1,000 words, but also like certain like with music also it might evoke a different emotion. Like I might listen to a song and have a different emotional experience, and then you listen to that song and then you have a different emotional experience. So it's really interesting how like the play on words can affect your mind and your even day.
And I love to be part of writers groups because they have something called the poet's whimsy. And when I write a poem, I know what I meant it to intend. But a lot of times people will tell me, well, you know what I got from that? I was thinking it meant this. And I find that fascinating to hear. And that's where we all bring in our experience and our own life. And so I'm always happy to hear what people are getting from something I've written.
And you know what's even more interesting? Like one day, like when someone picks up that book and says, you know what, I can see this as a screenplay or a movie. Your book is so well like written, and you can actually picture like the scenes. I mean, I can when I was reading Castle de Alegria, I could just picture like
Just happen to have it here.
yeah, I could picture like the different scenes and how it could look, and I was like, this could be a really good movie or a really good screenplay. So I don't
Both
know.
of my novels I actually intended for the screen. And being a court reporter who takes down the spoken word in court and in depositions all day, after 35 years, I'm really good at dialogue, less at novel writing, but more at dialogue. So screenplay writing is more what I kind of lean toward because I am able to paint the character with the words, with the dialogue, as opposed to having to give the whole background of the scene.
Yes, yes, understood. Cool. Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. That is so awesome. So, as an author, what inner transformation had to happen before you could fully share your work with the world?
I think I've always been very transparent and always shared my emotions in my poetry. And some of us, I think, are better connecting with an audience than one on one. And I had a little turbulent childhood. So, that was my therapy. That was my way of escaping. And
Mhm.
so when you find that other people relate to your methods of escaping and what you're writing about, it fuels the fire to write more of it and to share. And I always got good reactions, and I just go with that. But I lived in New York during 9/11, and I used to work 3 out of 5 days a week at the World Trade Center on the very high floor. And about 6 months before 9/11, and also in 1993, when the terrorist bomb went off in the basement where I personally used to park,
Oh,
I feel like there were angels watching out for me, and
cool.
that the universe had orchestrated things so that I wouldn't be there that day. And my agency still wanted me to be there, but I said my children are young, I think, and I had moved upstate, but still could drive there. And I said, I think I'm going to work more locally and be closer to my children. And that decision literally saved my life. And that was a transformation that, an impact it had on me and my writing. And I also started to learn that words are very powerful. They can either be roses or they could be swords. And
Yeah.
so I didn't want to put out things that are damaging to people. While I do write slice of life and I write very realistic characters, I really believe in happy endings. And I feel that a lot of things that I read and I watch in the media um, are very tragic. And I find that many of us want that escape from our tragedy, and we want to think that there's going to be something positive at the end of all this. So I always try to have an inspirational component where everybody has an arc in their character and finds their happy place. And
I
so
love
that's kind of a goal for me.
very cool, very cool. I love that. And everything that you stand for, it shows like in everything that you do. I mean, you have this group of that you call Circle of Sisters that you guys do different activities. I love that. You're in writers groups. Even though you have worked full time, you've always found a way to get your creative outlets out because it's who you are. Because even for me, sometimes I might have like a rough day and I just say, I take a piece of paper and just journal or like write a poem. And then it's like, oh, okay, it wasn't really that bad, And then you read it over and you're like, man, I'm so glad that I wrote my feelings down because then whatever you have in your head, it goes to your paper, and then you just feel a sense of calm, you know?
Absolutely. I also write music with my spiritual center, the choir, and a lot of times I just hand lyrics to someone who's a talented musician and they get inspired by it. So I love collaborating as well as just working on my own. It's a wonderful experience to see what somebody else comes up with based on inspirational words.
Exactly. And you know what? There's so many singers out there that they have people that write for them. Some of them are
Mhm.
writers, singer songwriters like Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran,
Yeah.
but a lot of the people that are big, you'd be surprised have a whole team behind them that write for them in the style that they're, doing. And it's a whole process. It's a big process.
Well, the
From
same thing with writing. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but everybody thinks you have to do everything, and they always say to new writers, and I share this with them. Just get that first draft out. Nobody of all your favorite authors writes a perfect first draft, and they have editors and they have consultants, and so it does take a village to produce things like a film or a book. So you have to learn to be open, to not be defensive, but to be very open and to criticism that's constructive, hopefully, and to welcome people's opinions for what might maybe open up your audience a little bit as well. And so there's a lot of things we don't know as authors, and it gives us great license to walk in many rooms of people of different experiences and lifestyles and say, I know nothing about this. Please school me, educate me. And I love those conversations because everybody wants to share. It's a very diverse world. And when you embrace the diversity and you honor people's choices and lifestyles, they will open up to you and give you really good insights that will improve your art. So that's something I like.
100%. So your writing carries depth and reflection. How does spirituality now influence the way you create and connect? Because I know you're also a spiritual person and you believe highly in, being the best self and your well-being. So now how did your spirituality influence now your author journey?
I think my spirituality influences just about everything that I do. And it wasn't always the case. Someone recently paid me a great compliment and they said, when they hear of the word spiritual, they think of me. And I don't think like 10, 20 years ago you would have said that. But at a point in my life where peace and balance is very important. So I do a lot of meditation, and I can walk into any house of God and find the truth and find the message that I was intended to hear. A lot of our details may differ, and people like to argue about that. But when you embrace the truths that seem to be very found in all the major religions, then you can hang with holy people of many different persuasions, which I do. I have people on speed dial, gurus, rabbis, priests, and it's a wonderful thing to be able to say, what does this religion have to say, or what do you feel about this? And so it opens up our minds. So just being open has really helped me tremendously as a writer and as a person. So when you can tap into your spirituality, you become a conduit. You realize you're a conduit for God, and that our purpose on earth is actually that. Maybe I have a writing gift because a message needed to be propounded to the world. Not to be so cocky about it, sorry, but I feel like it's not me. It's always from above. So I'll wake up at that witching hour at 3 a.m. and the poem will be written, and I will just get my phone and write it in there, and in the morning go, wow. And so people say, how long does it take you to create a poem? And I'm like, sometimes I wake up and there it is. So I don't really take credit for everything I write. I say that I co-create with God, and that's a beautiful partner to have on your team.
Yes. And even in general, like when you have a calm mind, you can think about your task or things to do in a very, strategic and smart way. But if you're just constantly in your head, like, this is not going to work, that's not going to work, I have a million things to do, then nothing gets done. And I've had to even tell myself, like, okay, I can write lists for days, but if I haven't crossed off at least three, then I'm just wasting
Mhm.
my energy. So
It's true, and accountability is also very important when you're a writer. If you don't give yourself a deadline, you may never write that novel. Everyone I've met has said, "Oh, I've got a novel. I want to write a novel," but they go through their whole life and they never actually sit and do it. And it's very important to give yourself a deadline and say, "I'm going to do it," not just to say, "I'd like to do it." You
yeah,
have to co-create. You have to, things take a village, but you have to be a villager. So you have to show up and you have to participate. And that's why I have so many circles, because I keep showing up to all these different events to support people. And even if I don't think it might interest me or is not something that I'm going to be doing, it opens up my mind. A lot of times you find an event is nothing like you expected, and
yeah,
you learn something. And every time I learn something, it's a great day. So.
absolutely. I think there's, and then you can learn from just anything so small. Sometimes, like, there's signs. I feel like there's signs that, like, I don't know how to explain it, but
Oh, I
every,
get it.
every day there's something you have learned different.
Absolutely.
Every day, maybe even from a conversation you've had with somebody, or something you read, or maybe you're listening to the radio and a song came up and it evoked emotion. Um, so every day there's a silver lining. You just have to find it.
Yeah, and somebody asked me years ago, what do you write about? And I said, there's nothing I don't write about. Anything that touches me or affects me. I said, I've written a poem about tofu. And that was one of my favorite poems because it was an analogy to my old self and my transformation of finding my voice and
Yes,
my self-esteem. And that's a beautiful thing that most everybody relates to. And it's become one of mine and other people's favorite poems of mine. And it's about tofu. Okay, so there you go.
that's like, so community seems central to everything that you do. What does true connection really mean to you?
Um, Connection is everything. I think that we can, as writers, many times we spend a lot of time alone on our craft as artists in general, but you do need other people. And so, even if it's just editing, consulting, or what do you think of this feedback? But I don't welcome a lot of naysayers, because there's always people who will tell you that's not a good idea. That was already written. Don't do that. Nobody's going to read that. But as an artist, you got to trust your instincts and do it anyway. So I try to surround myself with very positive, educated people, open people, and visionaries. And a lot of what I do, which a lot of the events that I hold, I'm
Yes,
not always the visionary. I have service in my heart. There were times I didn't have money to be a philanthropist, which was always one of my goals. And so when I didn't have money to donate, I would offer my time and my service and my talents. Like I said, if someone needs a book edited, I'll just do that at just for service, sacred service, if you will. And so I think there's greater payback when you do things expecting nothing. I mean, everybody needs to make money if they're earning a living, saying by their craft. Sure, your money, your time is worth money, and you're valuable. I don't deny that. But when it's just something that you do, and people say, I'm not really a writer, I just write blah, blah, blah. And I go, no, a writer is not someone who necessarily earns money professionally with their books, or makes movies, or does this. It means if you cannot not write, if you are inspired to write, if you enjoy the process of writing, and it puts the stars in your eyes, then that's what writing is. Then you're a writer.
exactly.
Own it.
Sure, for sure. So, how did now building your community help you step more confidently into your purpose?
Well, when I have events, for instance, I like to look at the demographic. I have many friends in recovery. So I try to provide spaces and events where I can show them we can have fun without drug and drink. There's always an abundance of food, because that brings people. It's true. But, a lot of people don't like the bar scene, and they're trying to avoid addictive situations of their past. And so I like to be very aware of my guests, and sometimes different communities like PFLAG, which I'm an ally in. And I like to provide a safe space that I know who will be there and people can feel comfortable in this environment. And so it's important, even with my women's group, which is I facilitate Circle of Sisters at the Yuma Center for Spiritual Living. I'm not the founder. There's many wonderful visionaries that I hang out with, and I co-facilitate, or I just help them network. So there's a lot of people. It's not all me. Everything takes a village, takes a team. And I love that we have a food pantry. And as you know, I just did a New Year's brunch, and I always try and attach a cause to what I do. So in order to get into the brunch, it was like, but you have to bring a donation for the food pantry. So not only are we celebrating our prosperity and abundance, but we're sharing it with fellow humanity, And even during COVID, I think you'll remember, we had underground bingo, and in order to get into bingo, you had to bring socks to donate to the Crossroads mission. So when you attach something, a cause to what you're doing, it's really beautiful, and people welcome it even more.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now you have built a community, you've given back to your cause. Now there's another mindset shift that happens, because now you want to be a leader. So in your opinion, what was the mindset shift that helped you grow from an individual contributor to society to now a leader and connector?
Well, it's kind of funny. I was just writing a very short story prompt for the writers group the other day about this. I was always a leader, and my mother got called into grade school, and the teacher called her out of work one day and said, "Your daughter's a leader, and she needs to learn to lead people the right way." And my mother said, "And you're making me take a day off of work for this? For what? What's wrong with this picture?" And so I never intended to be a Facebook presence. It actually was because my kids live on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast. They felt guilty about leaving mom all alone. I mean, I came out here. It was my choice. But it was my way of showing them, mom's having a great life. You don't have to worry about me, feel bad that we don't see each other all that much. I'm okay. I'm an independent, person. But it turned into me becoming sort of an influencer, and I run into people and they're like, "Oh, you went here and you did this and you're always doing all this, and I'm fascinated by your life." And I was like, really? It was like, I'm not paying attention. I'm just putting out positive things that, I don't like to use social media to say that this negative stuff is going on. That's my personal rule. No politics, no arguing, no negatives. I really just like to put the positive stuff there. But does it mean that's all that's in my life? No, that's not a realistic statement.
So my next question, we're getting down to the last few. What role does storytelling play in healing, both individually and collectively?
Oh, I think it's 100% healing. I think most writers use it. They start writing for personal therapy. It's the cheapest form of therapy you'll ever get. And feedback is kind of like our therapist. Yeah. And so I love that. And so it's been very healing for me, because there's many times that I have something to say to somebody and I can't find a way beyond their defensiveness to send a loving message that they will take, that will maybe help them in their life. And so when I write it in an artfully crafted way, and I know that they might see it, then I can touch their life and they don't feel that it's directed or targeted at them. And they're much more open to appreciating what it's saying and taking it, rather than having defensive ears and a response to it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But it's helped me heal through every major trauma I've ever had. And once you put that pen to paper, it's somewhere to put your feelings. Not everybody has a best friend at every given moment, or a spouse, a partner. And so you have to have somewhere to put your feelings. And as a court reporter of 35 years, I have heard very dark things. And a lot of things we are sworn to confidentiality. We don't share or discuss names and things that are going on, but you have to have a place to put that. And so for me, writing and not writing specifically about those things, but things that touch upon topics that are very sensitive, it gives you compassion and empathy, and it gives you a much better insight as a writer to have heard those things, and now you have somewhere to process it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what message do you hope people will walk away with after reading your work or attending your events?
It's always that there is always struggle. It's what we call in Hinduism sukha dukkha, the good and the bad, and Buddhism yin yang. And so I think we all know we have different terms in every walk of life for it, but there's always challenges, not good, bad, but challenges in our lives. It's never always smooth sailing as we'd love it to be. And so to know that there is something beautiful that can be found even in the most challenging of times. We recently, in my group, started a gratitude Facebook Messenger chain. And so that everybody who's going through whatever they're going through has to say 3 days, 3 things each day that they are grateful for. And it's been so transformative, and for myself as well. And it just keeps you focused on the fact that no matter what can go wrong, there's a lot of things that are going right, and we need to focus on them
So true.
to
That's
attract more of it.
Yeah. Like for me, the gratitude thing is great. For me, I did an I am challenge for myself. So, like, telling yourself, I am healthy, I can lose weight, I am confident.
Affirmation, yeah.
Do that, the more you say that, you start to feel it. You start to feel it.
And a lot of people who meet me now, I'm in a different part of my life than I was when I first moved to Yuma, even though back then. And so, they look at me and they're like, "Oh, you've got it all together." And I'm like, what are you crazy? When I was a young mother, I was just as neurotic, and I knew nothing, and I was flying by the seat of my pants, and I had nothing. I was struggling, no financial, disposable income. That was a whole other thing. So, it's just, so I write a lot about that to let them know that nothing comes that easy, that a lot of us still had, challenges and struggles. And it's just showing up and sticking with it, honing your craft, believing in yourself, and honoring everyone around you, and just being open to constructive criticism.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
So as a networker, how do you create now these spaces where people feel safe, seen, and inspired? Because you're always coming up with so many ideas and so many cool things that maybe someone has never experienced. So is it something you do collectively with someone, or is it something that you just say, hey, I'm going to have this tea party or this whatever?
It comes both ways, but I'll be honest, it really is never just me. And so usually I'll get an idea, or many people know to come to me and say, I have this idea for this event. What do you think? And where could I do it? And so it's just like, everybody, when you feel impassioned about doing something, that's a spiritual download, I call it. Others call it as well. And so you have to trust that voice. And so I think I was also put here to, ironically, then the people will come to me who are like, okay, this person wants to do this, and then this person wants to host that. So, I just say yes, or let me find out, and let me connect you with this one. And, this person might be willing to do it. And if they're not, sometimes I've opened my home and I create the safe space if I don't know one that exists. And, so it really depends on the event and the nature of the event and the people involved. But usually I have a lot of people that come to me with great ideas. It's not mine. And they've created the food pantry. And, a lot of people, there's always the people that are going to tell you this isn't going to work. And there's so many reasons why you shouldn't do it. But yet, those who believe get together and just do it, and then it becomes successful. So I've learned in my life, just tune those people out and just stay on your path, stay in your lane. And if you feel impassioned about something, follow that, because that's where you're meant to be.
Yes, yes. And I know for me this year, or actually last year, I realized the importance of learning to listen to your gut feeling.
Always.
because the longest time I was like, why am I feeling this way? Or and then like through different friendships, you learn that for some situations, like your vibe and their vibe have to align, because if they don't, it's always like a struggle between like figuring out how you can accommodate each other and things like that. And not every
Mhm.
opportunity is an opportunity. When I would get a lot of no's when I first started the business, I was like down on myself. I'm like, what could I do different? But then I realize now no just means next opportunity. It just means you're meant for something else.
So true.
And sometimes it's just like looking at that, like how can I improve now this situation, knowing that okay, why did I get to know, and like actually realizing that it could be maybe the way it was organized, or maybe it just wasn't the right timing. So
That's exactly right. It's a different season of your life that you're meant to do different things. And that's why I don't, like I say, well, I do stick with things, but, sometimes when it's time to move on to and put your energy elsewhere, there's nothing wrong with that. We all start as people pleasers and we want to please everybody in our universe. And it is an exhausting and impossible task. So once you get to that and you realize that the only person you really need to please to sleep well at night is yourself and what you feel is the right thing to have done with that day, for instance, or those choices, then
yeah,
life becomes so much more pleasurable. And
it
that's where I'm at.
does. Yeah, 100%, 100%. So looking ahead, how do you see your writing and community efforts evolving together?
Well, I'm constantly writing music and hearing it turned into beautiful song. I would love my books to be made into films. I always joke around and say I'm buying out Harkins or renting out Harkins when that movie comes out of my book, and all my friends who supported me all along will be there by my side. So, it's just I have limitless possibilities ahead of me. I am working on another novel and I'm actually writing an erotic poetry book right now. And that came to me because I wrote a poem and it affected somebody who
Yeah.
said, my God, you need to put this out as a book, of erotic poetry. And I said, I bet in all the years on my blog, I've probably written here and there some really good poems for that. So within like 2 hours, I had the book together and that's in the
Oh,
process now.
wow. That's
Yeah.
so
So, and it's funny because, like, I think earlier when my younger self may not have been as comfortable putting something out there in the world like that
yeah.
because it is very raw and very personal. But now I'm at a point where, I'm not ashamed or worried about what people think of me. What people think of me is not my business. That's
Exactly.
one of my favorite sayings. Yeah.
Exactly. And you just got to ride to the beat of your own drum. That's what they say, you know?
And that's when once you're authentic and you're true to self, that's when everybody's more attracted to you and feels safer around you. And
Yeah,
so that's what opens up that space for all these wonderful connections, honestly.
exactly. Exactly. So, my bonus question: what inspires you daily?
For me, it's always spirituality. And just trying to find the gratitude in everything that I do and looking for beauty in the simplistic things. So at this point in my life, I have a struggling little herb garden in my backyard. And that gives me so much pleasure just going out every morning and watering those plants and speaking to them. And when I see flowers, or herbs coming up, it's one of the most joyous things to me. It gives me such a pleasure that I never had before. And yet it's so simple, just connecting with nature. So there's so many different things to look at, and the people that you're blessed with in your life, and friends like you and others that I have. I mean, I didn't always have such wonderful people around me, and when you don't have your family close, which I love them dearly and they me, but you need to still have people in your environment that you can hang with that remind you who you are and that you're valued.
Absolutely, 100%, 100%. So it's been such an honor to get to know you more, and I'm so glad we made the podcast happen today. It was so inspiring. Thank you so much for your time. If anyone wants to connect with Dana, you can go to her page at Dana Manifestation, or find her on Facebook, Dana Mann. And I just want to leave with the quote: where purpose leads, impact follows. So follow your purpose, the impact is waiting. So, and if you want to see the replay, go to At One Self Consulting on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Thank you very much, Dana. It's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to see you again at one of your events or an event you come to mine.
Thank you, Natasha. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. Bye, everybody. Have a wonderful and blessed day.